Will the Southern California earthquakes cause Yellowstone supervolcano to erupt? Spoiler alert, no. This is Caldera Chronicles, July 8th. With the two strong earthquakes in Southern California these past few days, the magnitude 6.4 on July 4th and the evening earthquake a day later, July 5th, with a magnitude 7.1, it's a natural question. Will these earthquakes trigger volcanic eruptions, including perhaps at Yellowstone supervolcano? There was apparently a spike on internet searches on this very question, so we thought it would be a good idea to address it up front in this week's edition of Yellowstone Caldera Chronicles. This is on USGS, and I'll leave you the Volcano Hazards Program, the site of the Caldera Chronicles. It's a weekly column, as we know, written by the scientists and collaborators of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. And this week's contribution from Mike Poland, geophysicist with the U.S. Geological Survey and scientist in charge of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. With the two strong earthquakes in Southern California these past few days, the magnitude 6.4 on July 4th, and the magnitude 7.1 a day later in the evening, at 8:19, it's a natural question. Will these earthquakes trigger volcanic eruptions, including perhaps a Yellowstone eruption, a supervolcano? There was apparently a spike in internet searches, so they say we thought it would be a good idea to address this up front in the Caldera Chronicles. If you want the short version of the story, here it is. Earthquakes like those of the past week are unlikely to trigger volcanic eruptions, although they might trigger micro-earthquakes at some volcanoes. Now for the long version of the story, let's start with some historic perspective. The magnitude 6 to 7 earthquakes are unfortunately pretty common occurrences in the United States. Since 1900, in the continental United States, there have been nearly 100 earthquakes greater than magnitude 6, and there have been 9 greater than magnitude 7. Both of these numbers go up if you include Canada and Mexico. Most of these events are in California, but they have also occurred in Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. If we assume that rate is representative of the average, that means that there would be about 10 magnitude 7 plus events per century in the western United States. Yellowstone has not erupted in 70,000 years. Actually, it has had 80 eruptions since then. The USGS and Yellowstone announcements have told us that. So anyway, they're talking about a major eruption here. Not a super eruption, but a major eruption. And that was a lava flow and not an explosive eruption. That means there might have been something like 7,000 magnitude 7 plus earthquakes in that time period. None caused Yellowstone to erupt, though. Using a simple dose of common sense, we can see this is the case just from recent history. In 1992, there was a magnitude 7.3 quake, the Landers earthquake, about 25 miles or 40 kilometers north of Palm Springs in Southern California. And in 1999, there was a 7.1 event, the Hector mine earthquake, about 55 miles north of Palm Springs. Neither of these caused an eruption in Yellowstone or anywhere else, not at Coso, California, near Ridgecrest, the site of the recent strong earthquakes, not at Long Valley Caldera, another supervolcano in eastern California near Mammoth Lakes, and so forth. Proximity to Yellowstone does not matter. In 1959, the magnitude 7.3 Hebgen Lake earthquake occurred right on the Montana-Idaho border, essentially on the western boundary of Yellowstone National Park, and of course there was no eruption. But it's not as if strong earthquakes don't have any impact at all on volcanoes in the United States. They sometimes do, just not all in ways that are obvious. For example, both the 1992 Landers and 1999 Hector mine earthquakes in Southern California triggered some seismicity, mostly magnitude 1 or less, at the Long Valley caldera. Perhaps even more amazing, the 2002 magnitude 7.9 Denali earthquake in Alaska triggered small earthquakes at many mainland U.S. volcanoes, Mount Rainier, Coso, Long Valley caldera, and even Yellowstone. You might ask, how do we know that the smaller quakes are triggered by the larger quake? Good question. Based on seismic data, we can see that these similar smaller quakes start at the same time as the waves form from the distant large earthquakes arrive. Some of these trigger swarms have lasted for days. The next logical question is, what do these triggered quakes mean? There are a few possible explanations. It might be that the seismic waves from the distant strong earthquakes cause water and gas fluids that might come from magma reservoirs, magma chambers, to move around beneath the ground as the fluids move in the surface. They cause rock to break, and presto, small earthquakes. Another possibility is that passing seismic waves cause small increases in fluid pressure. Since hydrothermal systems are already at a critical pressure, which is why there are geysers, any small increase can cause microfractures as well, and thus smaller earthquakes. Probably both possibilities are true and act in different ways at different volcanoes. Large earthquakes can also cause challenges in hydrothermal systems like Yellowstone's geysers. The 1959 Hebgen Lake earthquake, and the most striking in that regard, was the most striking. Within a day of the earthquake, at least 289 springs in Yellowstone had erupted as geysers, and 160 of these were springs with no previous record of eruption, even after the 2002 Denali, Alaska earthquake. Some geysers changed their patterns, with more erupting more or less frequently, but not every geyser was affected. Some, like Old Faithful geyser, did not seem to feel the earthquake at all. This fickle response is a testament to the fragile nature of the geyser plumbing systems. So strong earthquakes can indeed have an impact on volcanoes, but triggering eruptions, that's not common, especially in the mainland United States, where hundreds of magnitude 7 plus events have clearly had no impact on volcanoes like Yellowstone, Long Valley, the Coso volcanic field, and elsewhere. Okay, that was the Caldera Chronicles for today, July 8th, and in the meantime, we still have the earthquake swarm ongoing. Let's take a look at that just very briefly. To this one here. You'll see that there's a tremendous amount of earthquakes here in this area. Well, actually, that's a small number. It's over 1,500 for the day. Okay, this seems to have been an uptick here of 27, and that's 5, basically northwest of Yellowstone. But going back to this one, I just picked one, for example. This one here, the 3.5 at the Coso volcanic field. The whole thing is the Coso volcanic field, as we can see, and it's 2.6 kilometers depth, 3.5 magnitude. Going back to this, you see that it was, there's one, the past hour. That's a little one, 2.5. they're only loading 2.5 and above, because otherwise it would be a mess here if we were loading everything. Now, this is the Garlock fault, as we see. The Garlock fault, and this is the San Andreas fault, and this is where they're zipped up closed. And you'll see that there's something very strange here, in that the L shape is sort of increased. It was an L shape to begin with, and it's increased going this way and that way, like a little branching off to the south and even more to the west, northwest. And it stops there. It stops there, and it continues northwards. Well, the thing here is, we can see this is like a type of a mountain. And let's go back here, and we'll go to the map of it and pull in again. Okay, that you can see. That's the China Lake Naval Air Center, and this is the area of our swarm, lately, that is. Let's go to the aerial, and you can see that must be, from what I remember, Volcano Peak volcano. The beautiful lava flow, and you can see that it was pointing south towards the area that we had our swarm that was building up towards the north, just downhill from the area of downhill of this lava flow from Volcano Peak. Now, as you can see here, going back to grayscale, go back to grayscale. Yes, topographic. Okay, this is where they stopped, at this mountain. Here, let's put it up a little bit. You see that bump there? This mountain. Our friend Ben Fiorillo pointed out in his video just before this one. I've uploaded it. It was Creative Commons, so we are allowed to use it. And they stop, and they continue again towards the north. Well, that thing here is a magma chamber. That thing there is a magma chamber. Let's go back to the map. That thing there is a magma chamber. Okay? That's our thing that we were looking at. That's the magma chamber. And the earthquakes stop just before the magma chamber. Right here. Again, let's go back to the aerial. Okay? That mountain there. They continue up to here. That's a mountain, and then they continue north of that mountain ridge, which is the magma chamber. He had one of the infrared things, and he showed the blob of heat right there. So that's what's going on there. Let's pull out, and you can see a little bit more of the population density if you want. The beautiful fault lines, as you can see, they're all over the place. And this is the Garlock fault, the second largest fault in California. The first is the San Andreas, and the second is the Garlock fault. And going back to our Seismo Berkeley again, if you want to put in all of the day, the whole for the day, that's where we get a lot of reds, because they happen to be, we didn't see them the first instance because they were under 2.5 magnitude. But you can see that most of them happen to be towards the north. Let's pull out again. Okay, and again, you can see that there's not that many here over the magma area. And let's see what's happening around this. This is towards Long Valley Caldera. It's the Uribe craters, the Inyo area. Okay, just northeast of Fresno. And let's see what's happening in the Yellowstone area. There we are. That's it right there. And that's a 0.9. But you can see that if you put in the whole of the past week, you'll be amazed at what's going on. You'll see that in part of this video, we had the seismic map showing how the seismicity was spread throughout the whole of the United States. And Canada, of course, felt it all the way up to Alaska, and the whole world actually felt it. Their tilt meters were showing everything. This is a little bit delayed. There we go, okay. And you can see that this area was all this line, this fault line going all the way up this way, of course, was again very active. And it started with the 6.2 on July 3rd that hit down towards Ridgecrest. And we've had the seismicity there for a couple of months, even the Salton Sea area, as you can see here as well. This is the little one, 1.8. Okay, so from what the Yellowstone caldera chronicles are telling us, they do not have any connection with any type of earthquakes, even though they told us in one of their past caldera chronicles that the Hebgen Lake, the 1959 Hebgen Lake 7.3 magnitude, we're feeling the aftershocks of that in Yellowstone up to now. That was their announcement in one of the chronicles. So the activity that we're having there is from the 1959 Hebgen Lake quake. Okay, that's it. That's all for the past week. And they're, as we see, they're continuing. And they will be continuing with at least 5, and they have, I think, a 8 or 9% chance of a 7 in the coming days or weeks, a 13% chance of a 5 or larger in the next few days. So we'll see what happens. And all of you who are there, please be very careful, because this thing is still rattling there. Thank you. God bless you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.